Will Baumann is the co-founder of Fourthwall. Fourthwall is the business behind names like MKBHD.
Cleo Abram, CoffeeZilla, Acquired Podcast, Santagato Studios or the Basement Yard Podcast, Y Combinator, the Smithsonian Institute, New York Magazine.
The largest creators out there depend and trust on Fourthwall. In this episode, we dive into how Will's been able to raise over $20 million for his startup, what he's learned from running the business, and finally, why he believes LinkedIn is the most important platform for entrepreneurs in 2026. Let's get into it. Welcome to Connection Accepted. I'm so excited today. We've got a great guest on. We've got Will Baumann from Fourthwall. Will, thanks for joining us.
Yeah, it's great to be on. Thanks for having me, guys.
Awesome. So Will, for people who don't know who you are or what Fourthwall even does, do you mind just giving a quick background on where you're from, who you are, what you guys are working on?
Yeah, absolutely. So my name is Will Baumann, co-founder, CEO at Fourthwall. I grew up in Tampa, Florida, moved out to or lived in New York for about 10 years, and then moved out to LA about 5 years ago when I was starting Fourthwall. Very simple. The probably easiest framing for Fourthwall is like merch for YouTubers, right? We do a ton more than that. That's where we started. I would say for our business model in our space, there's like two major players in the industry. There's Shopify, who's like enormous and wildly successful. I'm sure both of y'all have heard of. And Shopify is really built for people who want to run e-commerce brands full time. But there's this whole other segment of people who have some creative passion that really isn't running an e-commerce company as a full-time job, which is like every YouTuber, but increasingly it's every podcaster like y'all, hopefully soon. It's every Twitch streamer, it's every musician. Taylor Swift isn't personally running her merchandise and apparel and online beauty brands, right? Like somebody else does that. It's every startup and nonprofit, coffee shop, elementary school. So we're really targeting folks like that who want to launch fashion brands without actually worrying about supply chain or customer support or sales tax or logistics or any of that stuff. That's what we all do. Tech platform that enables you to launch a premium brand within 5-10 minutes, and we'll take care of like all the logistical details. So it's more of an Atoms company meets Bits company. But yeah, I've been doing that for about a little over 5 years and or 6 years at this point, and yeah, going great.
Can you give the audience some examples too of creators you've worked with and what you help them do?
Yeah, exactly. So a couple creators off the cuff, MKBHD, we power his mkbhd.com. So if you go to his site now, you can check it out. It's his homepage, sort of link in bio. He also sells all sorts of merchandise. Everyone else from Cleo Abram, CoffeeZilla, in the podcast space, we power the Acquired Podcast guys. In the business world, Santagato Studios or the Basement Yard Podcast. We power like I think 10% of the top 100 podcasts are on Fourthwall. Let's see whom else in the business world. We do Y Combinator, the whole Smithsonian Institute, New York Magazine, music. Anyway, it's like all across the board in terms of that. But a lot of people, we're totally white label platforms. So chances are we power a lot of shows you're familiar with, but may not see off the cuff. So
That's so impressive. There's so many brands that both Matt and I are familiar with. How do you first start? So I guess let's just go even further back. How did you come up with the idea for Fourthwall, and what kind of led you to that place?
So initially, I was just a big fan of creators. I watched YouTube a bunch, and one of my co-founders, Walker, he had previously started a company called Teespring, if y'all are familiar with that. And we were chatting about like the creator space and how like there wasn't really a standard business model that worked. And many of these folks are amazing artists, marketers, but not necessarily like always comfortable running in the business side. And that kind of sucked that there wasn't like an easy way for them to grow and make money and do that in like a way that made sense for their audience and their brand. And so we kind of started Fourthwall of like monetization for creators and seeing if we were able to figure out something in that space. And we decided to start on physical products. We thought that was the hardest segment in the area to solve, and it was sort of the biggest unlock in terms of like where we wanted to begin with. So we built supply chain networks around that, custom storefront generators, but like day one, it was really like raise some money, hire some engineers, and like start building this thing. And it really took us about a year and a half to get to like our quote unquote MVP point, because like I didn't realize this starting, like building an e-commerce platform sucks. It's really hard. Like I'm sure every business is really hard, and like I totally emphasize that, but like man, it was like a lot to like doing simple things of like inventory management. Like, don't always think about this, but if you oversell inventory, that's a big issue, right? Like if there's someone can only do 100 items and you have a bug and you sell 10,000 items, not good. So building an e-com platform was tough. We basically put that foundation in over a year and a half, and then we really started go to market trying to get new customers along the way. And I'm sure like anything, it's like getting your first 100 views, 1,000 listeners is like, it's a slog. You have to like sell everybody one by one. So it was like DMing everyone we knew, cold emailing everybody we knew, getting on, if somebody replied 5 minutes, we'd be on a call just being like, let us pitch you this thing. And then just like making it happen. We early on, we did a drop for Linkin Park, the band. And so I remember their team was in our platform. You couldn't even drag and drop the products into the right order. Like they had like 50 products and you couldn't move the right one to the top. You'd have to literally like save each item. So it'd go to the bottom of the list. It was like an updated app thing. So our team would be in there if they wanted to make one edit, save 50 straight things to just like reorder the list perfectly. But that's early on, right? And you just kind of make the platform slowly, iteratively better. We're like huge believers of like 1% better every day. Like every day we ship new stuff. We're like laser focused on making things better. No bugs, like everything's perfect and polished. And I think that ethos is really important because we're a white label platform, right? When Mark has for mkbhd.com, if you buy a product there, it's not obvious that Fourthwall is doing it. You won't see our branding anywhere. It's all his. And so if we fuck up, that's like visually his fault, right? So it's really critical we don't have any bugs. It's really critical that the platform is polished because like that imbues trust for these individuals when they're selling through us, that like when things are actually manufactured, that there's no misprints, there's no defects, there's no like stitch that's on the wrong side, or that this one has a stain on it, or the million, other things that can go wrong in supply chain logistics stuff just works. And so like we're really, really focused on like excellence from platform, start to finish.
Yeah, I love that, Will, you bring up the idea of quality being so important because of the nature of the product that you guys are selling and the customer base, right? As a creator myself, I can totally empathize with, someone like Marquez, for example, wanting to make sure that whoever he partners up with is is going to do a very, very good job. Yeah. Because at the end of the day, reputationally, it's his face, even if, the platform breaks down has nothing to do with what he was doing. So I really like that you guys are super focused on that quality aspect. And I'm assuming like in the early days too, obviously, as you were iterating and improving on the platform, that was top of mind as well.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, quality is like critical throughout the board for us. And just, there's like, I think fundamentally it's just like it's an oversight on a lot of platforms. I think we've never really tried to do like the true MVP where everything is like half broken. Like we really focused on like a quality end-to-end experience. And I'm sure a lot of people say that, but like the upside for us is like retention stats are spectacular. We have over 100% dollar retention, which means if a cohort of users started month 1 a year ago, by month 12 they're selling more than when they started on the platform. And I think that really speaks to like the quality curve of just like we're obsessive on the details, fast reply times, things are always right. Things do go wrong, but we take care of it, right? It's just sort of a no questions asked policy. We'll own it. If something goes wrong, if there's a manufacturer defect or whatever, we'll handle it. We'll correct it. We'll ship new things out to your customers that are like, right. And so that's been really good from us from like a retention standpoint.
It's honestly unreal and so impressive how you're doing it. I mean, I'll follow you on X and I'll see all your replies. Anything that says fourth wall related, you're always at the bottom. And I remember talking to you earlier about what you did on Reddit to grow and reply in the early days. Can you tell us that story?
Yeah, for sure. So we have a ton of little like growth things. I'm sure like every company does. So for us on Reddit, we use Reddit as sort of like a growth marketing forum. So again, we're a white label product, which means nobody knows we exist. So we have to like be inserted into every conversation. What we would do is we first scraped and identified all the subreddits that were mentioning any of our competitors. This is pretty straightforward, but if you go on Google and do site reddit.com and search one of your competitors' names, it'll list like the top subreddits that they're mentioning. So we found all those subreddits. There's only like 10 of them. It's not like super exhaustive. Then for each one of those, we set a monitor. There's a tool called Billy Buzz that we use for this, but we basically actively monitor each of those subreddits. And for every post that comes through, we use a chat GPT filter or a simple AI prompt that will try to infer basically, is this a high intent question where the answer should be us? Or part two, is it a question that someone's like comparing to one of our competitors? And if one of those hits true with like 99% confidence and the prompt stuff for all that, that will then post in a Slack channel that'll tag me or a virtual assistant who writes stuff for my team. And then, we'll send a post from my account that'll say, hey, so Will, I'm one of the co-founders of Fourthwall. Share some information that is both opinionated, authoritative, but not like sketchy in a sense. Like we're not trying to like astroturf the subreddits on like, our accounts, but effectively from me and, with a genuine reply for that. And those on Reddit, it's the faster you reply, the faster you get upvoted. Faster you get upvoted, the more people comment and ask questions on that. And that became an early like growth strategy for us to just like help discovery. So
Did you set up that entire automation process internally yourself, or like how did you get? Because it's fascinating. I think that's super cool that you're able to do that.
entirely internally. I mean, it's like I wish, maybe there's like eventually that could be its own company. For us, it was just like, company that monitors Reddit to Zapier Hook or Zapier Hook, however you pronounce them, to OpenAI prompt to Slack alert to human that goes and executes on that. But yeah, it's pretty easy. It took like an hour to set up. But yeah, we have like hundreds of little things like that. Another anecdotal one is like Trustpilot, for example. We really try to like push Trustpilot reviews because again, like white label platform, nobody knows we exist. If you do discover us, the first thing you're going to search is Fourthwall reviews or Fourthwall reviews Reddit, and you want to make sure that like that is presented in a way that does well and resonates. So anytime somebody replies to our customer support team or creator support team with like an inquiry or hey, this happened or that happened, we will take that information, we'll run that through a GPT prompt that basically tries to infer like A, is this problem solved? And B, was this solved with like, what was the sentiment? Is it like extremely positive or like meh? When you read through the whole thread, and if it's extremely positive, we'll follow up with like just a simple request of like, hey, if you have a moment, would you mind leaving us a review on Trustpilot? And so, sending that out to try to like encourage people at the right time in their journey to leave a review about our platform. And so that drives, if you go to our Trustpilot today, you'll see a steady drip of reviews that are just a function of that.
Are you doing anything like this on LinkedIn too, or is that harder?
So LinkedIn, yes. But right now LinkedIn is mostly me running manually. Yeah. So this is something I do at some point plan to hire a ghostwriter because I kind of know the content arm that I want to do it. But right now I'm doing it. I'm busy, so I don't post as frequently as I should. But to me, the meta on LinkedIn, and y'all probably know better from like the LinkedIn side. So maybe at the end of this, I'll ask you some questions to gauge. But like, I find LinkedIn is mostly around the hook, basically getting people to click to expand the post. So you have 20 words to like hook people so they click the three dots and be like, keep reading or read more, is the starting point. And then I have a network of people that I'll just, whenever I do make a post, I'll be like, yo, could you comment, reply, like, repost? I like the little light bulb, I think is the most valuable of those. I've heard, I'm not 100% sure if that's still the case, but like getting the little light bulb insightful emojis or any of the ones on LinkedIn, if you like long press, the like go kind of to the side charts of that. The basic like is the easiest, lowest friction point versus the long press is slightly higher intent. So basically, I text you guys and be like, I just posted something. Can y'all comment like whatever? And that's good for sort of the LinkedIn stuff. But right now, that's just me and texting some of my folks, but I'd like to systematize that. So that'll be early next year. So
That's huge. I want to dig in on that. And obviously, like for your context, I run a ghostwriting agency, so this is a very relevant topic that we can talk about. But so you mentioned like the time thing being sort of like the main barrier, but it seems like you've clearly seen that there is value in posting on LinkedIn. Can you talk a little bit more about that? Like, what kind of value have you maybe already seen, whether it's through like DMs from people or customers, investors, other creators?
yeah. So I would say we're our primary target user base is like YouTubers, podcasters, musicians, things like that. Those folks generally don't spend their time on LinkedIn. With one exception is that I think LinkedIn is like the easiest social network to ramp up on today because it's like so cringe, right? Like, and so it's like the competition's very weak. So there's a number of creators who've gone there just to be like, this is so easy. I can just like, have good polished content and like rip through the charts. But who actually spends a lot of time on LinkedIn is the managers, the agents, the larger entities that sort of are the business behind the talent in a lot of ways. And we often partner with them as well. And so that has been a really good and valuable growth channel for us is targeting those individuals. And that is largely a function of like trying to create content that engages with LinkedIn. So for us, that often looks like creating our own posts, but also giving replies to other posts who are like adjacent networks, because your comments, if you're fast to comment there, you will get exposure to their whole network. So like Daniel, when you comment on any of my posts, my audience is going to see you and therefore get, discovery about you as an individual writer. And that's going to drive followers back your way. So that's sort of how we've approached LinkedIn. But selfishly, like probably once a week from these posts, I got a new inbound deal, and that's like for one post a week. I think like whenever we really turn this into an engine, it'll be like dramatically higher. And I know folks who are getting 1 to 2 inbound leads a day, often with like 20,000 plus ACVs. Like it's super valuable. So
First of all, completely agree with you. And I think a lot of more founders are definitely starting to realize just how big of a gold mine LinkedIn is. It's not like any other social media platform. It's hard to find anything comparable to it, quite honestly. Um, and obviously you have the decision makers, the people who control the budgets, active on the platform. I think there's some statistics like 95% of all Fortune 500 CXOs are on the platform actively. Um, and, when I previously was at my employer, Google, I worked with a lot of B2B marketers. In every strategy conversation where, we were thinking about, okay, how can we most effectively market B2B products? LinkedIn was some component of it. And I think like the point you make about, you make one post a week and maybe a lead or two comes through that. When you're talking about ACVs that are like 10, 20, 50K, like that could be a massive impact on the business. And so the ROI is there. I think more and more people are just taking time to become aware of it and then actually like taking advantage of that.
yeah, and it's something that like again for us, the managers and agents, these are like the WMEs, the CAAs. These often rep many of the largest musicians, podcasts, YouTubers, etc. in the world, and they spend time on LinkedIn. They're discovering, they're either recruiting or talent acquisition or learning from other folks in their space who are doing unique and interesting things. Just existing and being present, it's like a steady drip of reminders that your company exists. Like the reality is like nobody cares about your company in the world, right? Like you have to make people care, right? Like nobody's going to come to you just because you threw up a website that just sits online. Like ever, right? Like you have to constantly drive marketing eyeball through away. And you can either build that through distribution, building your own audience, which is like a slow process, right? It takes years of building audience, or you can pay ads. And so that's the other thing we've sort of seen as another effective LinkedIn channel is like anytime a post starts to pop off, especially if it's a collab post with a partner company, like throwing some ad budget behind that will accelerate that. So your reach can go from maybe 10,000 organic to 100,000 with like a little bit of paid spend behind it just to get iterative stuff. But for us, like at the top tier, many of the agent, type deals are really high value ACVs. And so for us, just being that steady drip of content there, like the unit economics makes sense. It works. And I think that's like doubly true in like, quote unquote traditional B2B space where it's like a, multi-million-dollar ARR deal where you're like licensing that up front. So
When you're doing these ads, are you doing them from the Fourthwall company page, your page, or how are you thinking about ads on LinkedIn?
yeah, 100% from my page. So LinkedIn, I don't know if they officially do this, but like company accounts on LinkedIn get crushed. It's like banished to the shadow realm. Like if you're not posting on an individual account, you're in a world of hurt. And so we would only do it from an individual account, usually mine. So I'll like on Twitter, we'll basically from the company's account, and then I'll quote tweet it or reply or something like that, as well a bunch of people from the team. That's pretty effective there. On LinkedIn, you need to do the same post from personal accounts. Like company accounts just it's not like a zero. You shouldn't like not do it, but it just doesn't get anywhere near the traction that's relevant. So they'll all come from my post. Once I post, I will then message our internal Slack and text a few people of like, hey, post is here. Can you please engage? Which usually looks like some combination of likes, comments, reposts, just to build out that initial network. And again, I'm not sure if LinkedIn like captures that or has some penalty, but in general, there's like an initial velocity for posts that like tracks. So if you're kind of starting that curve and you get a lot more engagement early on, it matters, right? Like in terms of that versus if you post and there's no engagement for 5 hours, LinkedIn just kind of assumes like not that compelling versus like ton of early engagement. So immediately text my groups, and especially like tangential networks, I think are really important. So like it's better off in the sense that I post and I get your network to engage or your network to engage just as like my same circle all the time. And then if one of those overperforms relative to the mean and like we're doing a collab post or with a, partner company, we'll often throw some paid budget behind that. So
The process you described is exactly what Jason Cohen said, the same thing about only doing thought leader ads on his organic post that do well, and that posting on a company page, you might as well not post it at all.
Yeah, exactly. It's just like, again, we've tried both. I don't know if it's specifically penalized, but like it goes nowhere. But on the flip side, like, there's the famous, or I don't know, famous saying, people follow people, not brands. Like if you look at Instagram's top 100, I think Nike is the only brand there. And otherwise, it's the Selena Gomez, Taylor Swift, Kim Kardashian's, Cristiano Ronaldo's, like they're all humans except for Nike. So it's just not something that people do in terms of like following the company. I think of it like, sorry, last thing is like athletes. I don't know if you're all sports guys, but there's a reason after all these games they make these, the players like stand in front of a mic after they've just like played their hearts out for 3 hours and answer stupid questions from the press, right? Because people follow people. They want to learn from like the humans that are behind it as opposed to just the team. You want to like those players. You want to empathize with them. You want to feel their pain or celebrate their wins. So
Yeah, I love that you bring in that human aspect. I feel like on LinkedIn especially, it's a more buttoned up platform in general. Um, I'm curious if, because I also want to talk about like what type of content you sort of observed has performed better in terms of engagement or reach. Something that we've definitely been noticing from other guests that we've spoken to, and also just personally posting on our own LinkedIn accounts, is authenticity seems to do very well in terms of engagement
yeah,
on LinkedIn, right? I think like that's probably my hypothesis is one, obviously authenticity works across any social media platform, but two, especially on LinkedIn, where in the past, you probably wouldn't see any content outside of like, I'm happy to announce that my next role. But I feel like, especially as like more and more of the users are from the younger generation, you're seeing a lot more content that's sort of shifting in the direction of being a little bit more raw, authentic. Um, and obviously, it's personal preference up to people like what level of, I think, authenticity they want to portray in LinkedIn on social media. But I'm curious from your point of view, from stuff that you've seen or content that you've posted yourself, what have you noticed has really like resonated the most with the audience?
Yeah, I think things are I think it's authenticity and then some sort of unique insight, right? Which is probably true of all platforms. Like, people are like, woohoo, you got promoted. Like, and that's meaningful thanks to that person in their life. But it's just that's sort of the traditional drip feed versus, something that's more like a real hook, like Fourthwall passed, like Fourthwall grew more than 50% month over month for the, last X months. Here's how we did it. Like that's the sort of thing that's like unique insight to our company that I think is the most compelling on a platform like LinkedIn, because that you need that initial hook to get people to click to expand to see the rest of the post. The other like little tidbits, I see a lot of selfies performing well or photo dumps on LinkedIn. Like I haven't found video comment to be especially performant. Overall, I know LinkedIn is pushing that and trying to encourage that, but like just going to an event and posting a photo dump from that event, like is very effective I've seen in terms of that. And then some personal anecdote or insight. LinkedIn's a little more celebratory. I think Twitter is a little more raw in terms of like sharing failure. I find LinkedIn's a little less like sharing the hard parts of business building. It's a little more like, here's the wins, and people like to celebrate the wins there, and the algorithm pushes that. It's a little like friendlier place, whereas Twitter is more just everyone dunking on everybody else. So, yeah. So, but I would say it's like unique insights that generally, and I think that's true of all social, but LinkedIn especially, it's like unique insights that you have discovered from running your particular business or podcast or content creation or whatever your creative endeavor is. Like that's the stuff that, performs, I find a little bit outside because it's something you wouldn't learn otherwise. So
100%. I mean, the thing that you said about unique insights based on whatever it is that, you're doing at your business, or in your case, working with creators, I'm sure you have a lot of very interesting, insightful insights on creator behavior, what they care about, things like that, that other people are probably very curious about or could get a lot of value from. And, we've done interviews recently with Ara Karazian, who's one of the economists at Ramp, and he uses their proprietary spend data to create these really interesting insights and analyses. And people like Peter Walker, who's the head of insights at Carta, using their unique perspective on fundraising, startup equity, things like that, to create really relevant and actionable, valuable content on LinkedIn. Um, and so I totally resonate with what you're saying there around how you founders and even like employees at businesses have an opportunity to take the learnings that are specific to their industry or their product or their customer base and really almost synthesize it and package it up in a way that is beneficial to their ideal audience.
Yeah, agreed. And I think, even just earlier on this podcast, right, I've mentioned two things like this Reddit thing and the Trustpilot thing. Like, those are two good LinkedIn posts. They're not specifically unique to my industry, but they're something that are just like maybe companies are doing, maybe they're not, but it's something if you're not doing it, like, oh, maybe you could apply that, right? Others hiring on Upwork. For us in the creator space, it's like creators don't really reply to emails. Like, I don't know how many times y'all have reached out, but like it's not super common. And most people don't reply to emails to begin with, but it's LinkedIn and Twitter DMs are like a lot of our outbound motion. I mean, to be clear, we send like 50 to 100,000 emails a week every week to kind of, hit those channels as well from a creator side. But like the high touch, it's heavy on Twitter DMs, Instagram DMs, like trying to meet people where they are. And in traditional B2B world, it's LinkedIn DMs, right? Like that's the most common outreach funnel. And traditional business for us, it's hitting somebody up on Instagram. Yeah, found this interesting. You want to do a drop on Fourthwall, right? And seeing if that opens a conversation. And there's distinct tactics around that, like trying to buy aged Instagram accounts from however back this followers or that follower, so you're less likely to show up in the spam filters, trying to make sent from a US IP via XYZ proxy. Like all these things are little tactical details that you kind of build up in your go-to-market funnel as you sort of reach out. But email works for every channel. It's just that the high-end creators don't respond to their email mostly, and it's how do you find a way to contact on Discord, Twitter, Instagram, almost certainly not LinkedIn for our segment, but for most groups, LinkedIn DMs work exceedingly well. So
You are so incredibly dialed. Do you have any, like, I mean, LinkedIn still closing you some deals. Do you have a LinkedIn DM strategy right now? Like one to Instagram or not as complex?
not as complex. We use LinkedIn more for brand marketing. So just post of here's what we're up to is just like a steady drip of, we're alive, we're in business, we're growing super quickly, we're the biggest player in our space by a good margin. Like let us, like remember us when you need a deal for like, 6 months from now. And part of that is like intentional. Like the amount of times that y'all might want to do a merch drop or launch a fashion line for this podcast is like at best once a year, right? And so like our time to actually capture you in a high intent moment is maybe once a year. It's very valuable. Once we get you, we'll have you and you'll work with us forever because we're a good product and we're good service. But that onboarding ramp is infrequent. So a lot of our LinkedIn strategy is just around like the steady drip of, you know, us being there and being present. The other campaigns are more to directly meet the creators where they're at. So for the managers, it's more like, or agents rather, it's like we're present, we're here, we're growing quickly. Like when your client reaches out to you and asks you who's the best partner for us for this, keep Fourthwall in mind and mention them. For the creators themselves, it's a different strategy because the managers and agents serve to kind of protect creators from like the flood of stuff and deals coming in and trying to like filter its best. So we find it more effective to go straight to the creators on the other channels. So
That's exactly what Peter Walker does with Carla. Like because he's got 150,000 followers on LinkedIn. When we were interviewing him, he was pretty much talking about how his job isn't to, have a click through rate and get a certain amount. It's so to reach potential founders. So when they're ready to start a business, the first people they think of is Carla.
exactly. And it's just, some businesses are very sticky, very high ACV, but they're like low intent, right? When you need it, you want to be the first one they're thinking about, but it's not like, an everyday initiative. And so a lot of LinkedIn for us is brand marketing. And I think that fits for any sort of like infrequent but high intent action.
One of the key things is I'm sure you know with content is have a repeatable format.
Mhm.
And I think with LinkedIn, it's really hard to figure out a repeatable format like these are on YouTube, you have a podcast show or, you have tech reviews. Have you thought about any sort of repeatable format for you on LinkedIn?
Not as much as I would like is the the short answer to that. The longer answer is in the span of us building the business, I probably have like a myriad of conversations with our team every single day, many of which are like pretty unique and insightful, and that I may not like pull out of my own workflow. And so, what I think the best repeatable flow for myself would be is just like sit down for 15 minutes at the end of the week with someone of just like run through your Slack DMs and figure out what were the 5 most interesting conversations you had this week that are somewhat insightful, and turn those into posts, right? And so I think there can be a steady drip from that because you discover a lot just in the span of whatever your normal day-to-day business habit are that or whatever your habits are for that particular day that you may not share with the world, right? It's very natural to just problem solved onto the next problem solved onto the next problem solved all the next problem. Like so much of building is just like firefighting in a unified direction. And so trying to like sit down at the end of the week or have for me probably an interviewer who can like sit down with me and be like, hey, let's glean out, let's go through your Slack DMs or messages and figure out like what are the channels that were unique and exciting so that you can turn those into posts.
I love that you bring this up, because a lot of what I do is also just like interviewing founders, and a lot of times it's like they may think that there's not that much content available from the week, but it's really an exercise of unpeeling the layers of the onion. And we'll start high level with like, okay, so how did the week go? And then they'll tell me like X, Y, Z things. Um, but really like asking those second and third order questions to really get to the bottom. Okay, so how are you feeling? Why did you make that decision? What was the rationale behind it? And then what does that mean in terms of like how you make decisions? Oh, maybe that's a post about how you make decisions as a founder. Or we try to follow a framework to give you a general structure, that maybe you can test out if you'd like, is like growth content, which is more top of funnel, authority building, which is more, you could say, top to mid funnel, and then the personal content, which is more to humanize you and probably will get a lot of impressions, but may not be as conversion focused. And so, an example of a growth question you could ask yourself is like, is there something interesting that I read in the creator economy that really resonated with what we're doing at Fourthwall? That could turn into a post. Give your own unique spin on it. Authority building content. Maybe there's a conversation that you had with someone on your sales team this week, and there's a common sales objection that you've been seeing has been coming up over and over. Maybe you want to address that in post. Hey, like this is the most common thing that I hear from creators that are thinking about launching their own, merch. Like, how do we do this? And then you talk about what you're doing at Fourth Wall to specifically address that. And then on the personal side, of course, everyone has a lot of stories around why they're doing what they're doing. So there's an endless supply of content there.
Fully agree. And I think a lot of it is just like you said, unpeeling the onion, right? Like anyone who's making like putting some work into whatever their craft is, whether it's marketing, whether it's YouTube, whether it's podcasting, whether it's consulting, like whatever your work or primary sort of like focus in a given week is, there's so much content around that. You may not be able to share all of that for, privacy reasons or personal reasons or whatever, but everyone has so much content in their lives, right? The difference is, do you want to share that with the world? And many folks don't. And I think that's very like understandable. It's like scary and often sucks to put yourself out there and like what is by default almost certainly super cringe, right? Like LinkedIn is made for super cringe and that sort of content. But if you can kind of get through that barrier of just starting, it's unbelievably valuable just in terms of connections. I also haven't even spoken to recruiting, right? There's like huge top of like Fourthwall's actively recruiting, right? We're like always looking to like everyone, like hire the best people, but like, okay, sure. But how do you find the best people? How do you want them to like come to work with you as opposed to like some other company? Well, you have to like teach them about like why what you're doing is why it matters, right? Like Fourthwall's helping like millions of artists succeed in launching their brands, monetizing, make ends meet. Like that's powerful to a lot of people. So how do we share that story in a way that gets someone who resonates with that mission to want to work with us, to join our team? And that's another like major value prop of LinkedIn is it just frankly makes recruiting dramatically simpler than if you're just like, all right, let's hire our 15th agency to go try to find like the best growth person in the world, right? Of just who's gonna, send a bunch of cold DMs and like maybe, but like, you kind of have to have that journey as well.
I love this. And I think what stands out and helps you guys succeed so much is that mission. And I'm curious because I think we've seen a trend recently of that mission moving more towards a not monetary, but something numerical, like on a mission to help 5 million creators launch their own store, or like John Hewitt's billion-dollar business. Have you thought about tweaking that mission to something more numerical that more people can join on? I know it's like a slight tweak, but
I don't. I think the numerical is more internal for us as a company, and I think the mission is like bigger and I think it's bigger. Like I think the two best examples of missions in call it the last 40, 50 years are like Bill Gates Microsoft computer on every desk and Elon with the, go to Mars, right? Like they're big grand missions that aren't necessarily numerical, but whether you empathize with those two individuals or not, those are two missions that clearly like resonate with people who are in those respective industries and want to chase. I think the numerical goal is like a really internal motivator, but I don't love it as the mission because I don't want to achieve our mission's a never ending goal. It's like to empower and empower and empower. And like, so I really want to set that sort of like Google's mission is to index the world's knowledge, right? Like that's an ongoing mission as opposed to like index a million posts or whatever, right? Like there's a different scale to that I think is like compelling for us. So honest answer is probably not to have a numerical tie-in, but internally we set that mission of like, all right, we hit like now we're at 350,000 sellers. Like, how do we get to a million? Like, what's the path there? How do we do that? Like current pace, maybe we hit it this time frame. How do we compress that? How do we do it twice as fast or four times as fast? Like, how do we, strive to hit that mission faster and better than we thought possible?
I want to shift gears a little bit, back to LinkedIn specifically. Will, you've been on LinkedIn for some time now. Is there anything that you'd want to change about the platform as it is today?
Hmm. Probably. I would like, I've mentioned LinkedIn's cringe. I would love to get like less cringe. But I think that's sort of like, folks like ourselves who are posting there more regularly and adjusting the format. But it really is gamified to be like, you know, one sentence, quick hook, then like a multi-part step down as you expand it, which is kind of okay. I think the other thing is I would personally like to get less DMs all the time and like cold inbound all like some of that's very valuable, but a lot of it is the connection system is kind of cumbersome where everyone does as a connection as opposed to a follow. And so it's a little harder to like navigate between those two segments. But I think as a platform it's pretty solid. I don't have any major gripes about it. I like it as a service. I may not have like the deeper nuance understanding as someone who posts a couple times a week, but isn't like ghostwriting or in it every day to know like the deeper platform nuances. But it feels a little more gameable right now.
Are you someone who has 0 connection requests right now? Do you go through them all? Or do
I'll
you build that?
No, I go through all of them, but I don't like I don't ignore them. So I have probably like I don't know 1,000 plus in there, but like I'll accept the ones that like I usually if I have like a large degree of mutuals or they write an interesting hook in their connection request. So
I think one of the biggest unused growth levers on LinkedIn right now is actually your personal title. Because I think, like you were saying a little bit earlier, is that no one knows what fourth wall is. In saying, I think it's a little bit different when you're like commenting on Reddit under support tickets. But if you're trying to grow an audience on LinkedIn and you see co-founder and CEO of Fourthwall, most people aren't going to know what Fourthwall is. But if you say, I'm the business behind MKBHD, or like I make merch for creators, or some spicy take about the creator economy, that might make people more likely to accept your connection request or follow you. Or when you comment on Matt's post, might make you more willing to click on your profile and then see what fourth wall is.
that's smart. I'm gonna make that change right after.
Uh, do you have any spicy takes that you think you can put in there, or what are you thinking about changing it to now?
Um, I'll have to see the character limit for it, but probably
It's I think like 63.
okay. I'll probably drop. I'll have to see, but it probably something like 350,000 stores, 9-figure GMV, is something creative, something in that like just shows, the reach. So
I love it. When I change mine to LinkedIn as the next TikTok, I've gotten so many more DMs because of it. And like everyone's like, "What are you saying?" And then it's like this is exactly what I wanted.
but I'm gonna like test a few variations of that as soon as I get back. So
Oh, hi.
Well, on the topic of getting lots of DMs, a lot of them being not very good, has there ever been a DM that you've received in LinkedIn where you're like, "Oh, I that was really thoughtful, or that was really creative," or "I want to respond to that because it's different"?
yes, there's a few. I would say they do one of two things. They either know very concisely what they're offering, or they kind of tug at like heartstrings. And so or at least one example on the heartstrings one. I forget exactly how it was framed, but someone was like, "Hey, I'm, high school kid, like trying to figure out what you did. Like somebody took a chance on you when you were my age, like open to a quick call." Like something like that, like I think is a good hook for a young person to just like, chase after or something like that. That isn't just like, hey, like a lot of these things are like career advice or just blase stuff that they don't have like an actual intent behind it. If I'm trying to learn X or get Y out of this, I think you should really come in with a specific ask is one. From like a business standpoint, it is pretty rare. A lot of them are just like, you know, SDRs, BDRs, AEs trying to just like, hey, I'm selling a new customer support tool. And it's like, I'm not interested because they haven't, it's just like at scale, they haven't done the research. Even if it's an AI enabled one, it's pretty vanilla. And I get it. We do this on our outbound as well for email. It's just vanilla works. It's a numbers game. It's a volume, like it's all, part of it. But the ones that really hook are usually like a little more personal address, like not necessarily recent posts, but like saw your interview on X. You mentioned you had this specific problem or, Reddit thing, like we can do better. Here's my tool, like open to, can I email you or something like that, that warms the conversation, or like, can I send you a video? I love receiving looms in terms of like a video intro because it showcases like you did the manual work. And like, the truth is like, I'm sure your schedules are similar. Like you look at my schedule at this point, like we have no standing meetings or very few in Fourthwall. I cancel all that. And so we can just do all ad hoc customer meetings, problem solving meetings, like really focused things. My calendar is like crushed every single day. Like the last thing I want to do at the end of my busy day is get on like a 15-minute call with someone to hear a pitch on a product that I don't want, like it's like, that's the truth. And so that's what you're competing against if you're one of these things. So like sending a Loom video, hey, 3-minute pitch, here's the thing, here's what the platform is, like, open to chatting more. Like that's a grind to do that, but at least for me, it works.
We've been talking a lot about how voice memos, you can now send voice memos on LinkedIn DMs. Have you gotten any?
I will not listen to a voice memo.
Really?
Yeah. Yeah.
Out of curiosity.
No, no, no. It's because it's more, it's higher friction for me. Now I have to like put it
In my Loom video?
but a Loom video, I think, is like much more like that is higher friction overall, but it feels like it's a higher intent production thing that they like really put in the time on it versus like even on a like when someone texts me a voice memo, like I realize this is like a generational thing, but it like shifts the work. It's easier for you to record a voice memo, but it's like quicker for me to read 20 words of text. So I don't want to listen to it basically. But a Loom video, it's like so much knowledge density in like a 1-minute thing. So
That makes sense. I think the reason voice notes have been working so well for Matt and I, even like just getting guests, is because of the novelty. And I think almost like the way Snapchat, like you don't know what the message is going to be, and you get that with a voice memo. But I do totally agree that the effort is on the person receiving it to listen.
right. So I could see the novelty part working, and listen, I'm like, it may just be a generational thing. I just don't like to get voice memo. So like that's just fine. But I could see why it works. I just can speak personally. Like if I get one of those, that's a next. Yeah.
We have to try Moon videos.
Yeah, we'll try that next. I think you hit on a really important point, right? Which is for anyone who's trying to do outreach to people who are probably getting high volume inbound, whether it's a founder or a creator, what have you, uh, demonstrating like a little bit of higher effort, either through, the Loom video or even like a voice note, or a more personalized message because it took them an extra second to even just think through how am I going to craft this slightly differently, is super, super important, especially I feel like in today's day and age with so much outbound that is probably being automated at scale, the volume has never been higher than it ever has been. So I think, if anything, do you think that it's harder or easier to stand out because of the additional volume of outbound?
I think it's harder to stand out, but it's also conversely like easier. Like the standard pitch is like will or quick call or one of like any of those are like insta spam, right? Like I don't want to get on a call with you for 15 minutes to hear your pitch. Like if you can't concisely present your pitch and why this is going to be valuable for me in like 2 sentences, I'm done. right? Like, and so that's your job for like busy people. And I realize that's hard. I'm not trying to like convey that as like an easy problem, but your job is to the last thing in the world I want to do is get on a phone call with a stranger. Like, really, like, it's just, I need to know that you're like serious or like going to bring something super interesting and unique, or just are like early in your career and you have some unique take that you want to learn about X. That to me is compelling. And so those are the things that tend to get me. So I think maybe this perhaps a cop out answer, but there's so much like low quality stuff out there that I think it's easier to stand out. But the flip side is, because there's so much low quality stuff out there, it's easy to get like flooded in the noise. So like, in between your super high value, like the reason people go to low value stuff is if you send me a high value thing, if I don't catch it and get hit by 4 more low quality things and I check it a day later, like it's just, check all, mark as read, on to the next, right? So like the reason people go to low quality stuff is because the high quality hit rate is only like maybe 2x the hit rate of low quality overall. Like realistically, like if you really, like we've done this in our cold outbound volume stuff. If you just do generic copy, maybe call it a 3% reply rate. And if you do highly tuned copy that's like very personalized for a cohort, like if we email all creators is the same versus like Minecraft gamers being different than tech YouTubers being different than like music podcasts. Like if you really break it out like that, you maybe get to a 6% reply rate. So the reason people default to low quality is like it's a 2x improvement, but like, 6% is still, you're emailing 100 people to get 6 replies. Like it's not like great, it's not like you go from 3% to like 50% if you really make it high quality.
And I think the ultimate 100% rate is through making your own content and then getting it to come to you.
Exactly. It's really like you need an inbound funnel, right? That's back to full circle with like why we create our content. It's so people come to you, and so you don't have to like filter through the noise. People see you on the feed. It's interesting. It's exciting. So
Are there any other we did touch on this earlier, like any other LinkedIn kind of hacks you're trying right now, experimenting or
Uh, I would say there's no particular hacks that we're experimenting with right now. The ones we mostly spend our time on are post. You need to have a hook. I'm sure this is kind of obvious, but maybe for your audience, but just in case not, like, and you need your hook above the see more or like little expansion, right? Just like simply like that's the most important signal to the algorithm is like, do people click to open that? Then the moment or within short time of making a post, you want to do that usually 8 to 9 Eastern time is what I've seen be the highest effect. You want to share that with your peers, your coworkers, ask them to like LinkedIn takes likes, comments, replies for all of that. You want to cross reply on other people's posts. So like I would reply on Daniel's post, he would reply on mine, that you're kind of co-boosting each other's things, but just asking for that. I've heard the light bulb icon and versus like vanilla like versus light bulb like tends to be the highest value. But those are kind of like the more tactical things. And the meta may have changed across all of that. That's maybe like 4 to 6 months dated knowledge. So like all those may not be fully applicable, but like I think Mr. Beast has said that like the algorithm is just the audience, right? Like, at the end of it, like the goal of whatever algorithm is just to give people what they engage with. And so these are all little hacks and tweaks, but like at the end of it, if your content is not interesting or personal or exciting or informative, people are just going to scroll to the next one. And that's like the worst thing that can happen is, it's just somebody scrolls down and keeps looking to like the next post. That's what hurts you in the algorithm.
Yeah, I think you hit on a really important point about what it takes to go viral or have a high performing post. It's almost like the 80-20 of it is just create good content. But there's obviously all these other things like little optimizations, like min-maxing that we can do with each platform or with, the algorithm. But at the end of the day, the algorithm, Mr. Beast, I think, says just replace that word with the audience, with people, because that's the end user. And regardless of how these algorithms change, how the platforms shift, you'll always be still trying to speak to the same people. So if you can strike a chord with them, get them to resonate in some way or deliver a lot of value in just that one single piece of content, then there's no reason why people wouldn't want to engage. And obviously it would get pushed out then from the algorithm.
the algorithm's the audience. It's just write stuff that people find interesting, right? If you wouldn't read your own post, why should somebody else?
So I just had another random idea too. I'm gonna send you my link template. I just made one for Stephen Bartlett of like a compilation of some of the creators. He has a fight story. I think that would be another good upgrade to your profile. For
I will absolutely swap that out. I need y'all. I need like some help on upping my LinkedIn game.
to give you some context, for we have a recurring segment called "Good Idea, Bad Idea." I'm gonna fire some ideas off you, and hopefully Matt may join with one or two ideas, and you'll just give us how it is. So the first one is giving fans votes. And I haven't totally thought this through, but like some sort of like, I think super fans might want like some control over their creator. And I think control might be like a dramatic word, but like, have you thought about something like that where like giving fans output on something a creator does?
Okay idea. Probably skew like there's some good elements to this, but at the end of it, like you want the artist to make the art, right? Like, and I think it becomes decision by committee, which isn't great, you know. So I think it's a fun thing for creators to expose if it's like they're debating between three shows. We have Viva La Dirt League. They run their premium memberships fully white labeled through Fourthwall. They will do a like, hey, we're thinking of these three shows to launch as our next sketch show. We're excited about all three. We'll let the fans, the paying fans, vote one vote a person to see what that. So can be a good idea, but you still want to make sure the artist creates the art at the end of that.
This is, I realize, also not a good idea or a bad idea, but I'm just genuinely curious. What are your thoughts on like the logistics on embroidery versus screen printing for t-shirts and stuff?
Or embroidery is there are different styles, of course, and there are different things. Like one call out for embroidery is like even on the thing you're wearing right now, it's probably like a little patch inside. So embroidery tends to be like
This is a low patch.
yeah. So like embroidery on t-shirts, especially lightweight fabric, has like a little patch on the inside, so like the thread can stick and stay tight. That can be a little uncomfortable on a t-shirt. So embroidery tends to work better on like hats or heavier garments, like more streetwear, heavyweight type stuff, than opposed to like a light form-fitting t-shirt. You can do like super high-end and premium embroidery that like offsets that, but it just like it can be a little more uncomfortable to wear for like larger embroidery. So because of that, prints tend to be best on lighter shirts. Embroidery tends to scale up as like a small little patch or logo or sleeves things.
Mm. Um, Matt, do you have any ideas?
Yeah, I have an interesting idea. What are your thoughts on crowdsource, almost like a GoFundMe, but for creators, where, or less of like funding the creator to do something for free, but like fans can invest fractionally in creators. So if a creator has a really thriving business, but like they want to inject more cash into it, really supercharge the growth, and they don't mind sort of like allocating a certain percentage of equity to some of their audience who would be big supporters. What do you think of the concept of almost like giving fans the chance to invest in a MKBHD?
I think I skew to bad idea. Not that I think it's like a totally bad idea, but a lot of creator businesses are like all over the place of artists chasing, whatever like fun business endeavor it is. And I don't know if it's like I think it could be either penalistic to the creator who like gets into some crazy like 50% rev share where they're at like 100K subs and then blows up to Mr. Beast status and then like doesn't know how to get rid of like a bunch of like boutique micro investors, or people invest in someone who's like Mr. Beast status who's like doesn't structure the business in a way that will give like reasonable returns. So I think it's like I like the concept, but I think the devil's in the details, and I think the details will make it like not work super well.
Then the reason why I asked you about that question is I was approached maybe like 6 months ago by an unnamed startup that was attempting to do something like that, and I didn't end up like entertaining it, but it was interesting to me, the concept of it. But I can see why logistically it would be a nightmare.
I think it's better if it's like a more of like a traditional debt instrument. Like if you took 100K from them and you had to pay back, call it 125 or 150 over X time frame. I mean, there can still be a negative ramification, but I think the equity aspect is harder when it's like like the business of creation is mostly an individual person, right? And so it's like you're basically capitalizing a person's like time, which is, it doesn't really, I don't know. There's not a lot of businesses or traditional art that has like gone that way. So
My next idea is a creator starter pack, and I'm a little biased. I know you do most like B2C, but like if there could be a wrap for this mic and, with like a sticker on it, like some of the others, what do you think about that idea?
speaks to our wheelhouse. Love it. We'll build this. So let's say like a wrap around this microphone or stickers or something like that. Like the reality for creators is source that and figure out the supply chains. Like a one-off is one thing, but even to sell like these to their audience, it's just a lot of work and time. Whereas they should, maybe not should, but maybe would rather spend that time making the perfect thumbnail, editing the first 30 seconds of the video so that it's super crisp. There's no, like the cuts are fast and all that, and not like, which 20 manufacturers should I call to source this thing? Like that's what we try to do. So you can just trust that like we're obsessive on quality. We want nothing but the best. And so we will make sure that everything is perfect so that you can focus on the other spots of your business that you enjoy.
That's awesome. Matt, do you have any more ideas?
This one.
Um, None at the moment. Those are good though.
Cool.
Well, was there anything we did touch on you wanted to mention?
No, I think that was good. I'm excited to hear about your ghostwriting agency, Matt. I think would be super compelling. And I enjoyed this. This is fun. This is like a cool little back and forth. I can just riff on random stuff if it's compelling. But yeah, I really enjoyed this. So
Thanks for coming on, though.
yeah, absolutely. Appreciate it. Thanks, fellas.